Caregiving can sometimes feel like an impossible struggle. Caregivers may be torn between taking care of loved ones and trying to maintain balance in life. The good news is that it doesn't have to be that way. The Caring Generation with host Pamela D. Wilson is here to focus on the conversation of caring. You're not alone. In fact, you're in exactly the right place to share stories and learn tips and resources to help you and your loved ones. So now, please welcome the host of the Caring Generation, Pamela D. Wilson.
This is Pamela D. Wilson, caregiving expert, expert witness, speaker, and guardian of the Caring Generation. Thank you for joining me for this week's show, episode 233 in year 8. The topic is generational caregiving and family caregiving support. How to manage expectations through family discussions about generational beliefs and patterns that may no longer be beneficial to your family. Are generational caregiving expectations straining your relationships with elderly parents and siblings? Family caregiving often involves complex dynamics that can make providing elder care more challenging than it needs to be. In this episode, I'll share background about adverse and positive childhood experiences, abbreviated as ACEs and PCES, and their lasting effects on adult children who become caregivers of their aging parents. You'll leave this episode with tools, caregiver tips, topics for discussion, and support strategies to help you and younger generations in your family to break free from limiting beliefs and toxic family habits that can be passed down from generation to generation. These experiences can result in challenging family dynamics, codependent behaviors between siblings or adult parents and their children, difficult sibling relationships, and when it comes down to it, these experiences can result in emotionally draining elder care situations. Let's start by talking about adverse childhood experiences and events, ACEs. There are two types: interpersonal, which means between you and another person, and non-interpersonal, which can relate to accidents, illnesses, or death. The interpersonal memories can include physical abuse, a parent withholding emotional support, being emotionally abusive, children witnessing or experiencing domestic violence, a parent neglecting the needs of a child or the family, and a parent being critical or demanding. All of these can have a significant effect on lifelong parent-child relationships, and they can affect multi-generational caregiving relationships where an adult child is caring for an elderly parent and raising young children at the same time. One of these memories for me, and it was actually a positive one, I remember my mother taking me to see my grandfather at the funeral home when I was 5 years old. This memory sticks in my mind. I can recall standing on the kneeler and touching Grandpa's hand as he lay in the casket. His hand was cold. It wasn't a scary situation, probably because he looked like he was sleeping, and my mom didn't make a big deal about it. I remember watching her kiss Grandfather goodbye. You may have similar or different positive or negative memories from your childhood that you remember today. According to research, people from non-white ethnic backgrounds, Latinos and Blacks, are more likely to experience trauma. These traumas can include witnessing violence, experiencing bullying, living in poverty, or experiencing material hardships where parents have difficulty paying for housing, food, medical care, utilities, or other expenses. Growing up in a single-parent, single-income family home can make these hardships more common. Additionally, these experiences can result in children having learning or educational difficulties, behavioral or emotional challenges like anger, physical aggression, anxiety, or depression. Some children in these families have difficulty establishing social relationships with other people. They have difficulty controlling their moods, their attention, and difficulty regulating their behaviors. If you're interested in reading the research about adverse and positive childhood experiences and parental relationships, there will be links to these studies on the podcast page for this episode, number 223 on my website. How do you get there? You go to PamelaDWilson.com, click on the Media tab, and then the Caring Generation, where you can scroll down to find information for this episode 223. So keeping adverse and positive childhood events in mind, what happens when you become the primary caregiver for elderly parents because of birth order, cultural beliefs, your sex, male or female, or the expectation that this is just what you do and you will do it? If this is you, you may be uncomfortable with generational family caregiving expectations and trying to figure a way out. What if you want more from life than being a caregiver for elderly parents and you never become independent or financially self-sufficient in your lifetime? Which means that if you do have children, you will likely pass down the burden of your care to your children. This is a generational concern for many adults today. And before I forget, please do help more people find the show so we can grow our caregiving discussions across all family members and all generations. Please like the Caring Generation podcast and share a positive review on Spotify, Apple Spreaker, or your favorite podcast app. You can find all the episodes, show transcripts, and links to articles and research on my website at PamelaDWilson.com. Go to the Media tab, select the Caring Generation, and scroll down to the page. Let's talk about caregiving responsibilities, and parent-child relationships. What if your siblings and other family members aren't offering any support because they expect you to do it all? Maybe you make it look easy. Maybe you agreed to do it and now you're having second thoughts. Cultural beliefs about caregiving and ingrained generational expectations do affect the primary caregiver's life. You might feel stuck, like there's no way to escape a care situation without becoming alienated or distanced from your family, who you might feel will hate you if you leave. And while family is important to you, self-preservation may become even more important to you as the sole focus of your life becomes your aging parents, and you're watching your career and your health and your family suffer. Research confirms that a father's parenting style is highly related to the parenting style in which they were raised and in which they raise their children. Which means if your grandfather was a strict, uncaring person who emotionally or physically abused your father or your grandmother, then your grandfather's behavior molded your father's behavior. This can be similar for women, their mothers, and their grandmothers. There's a trickle-down effect, and not in a positive way, because these harmful behaviors, limiting beliefs, and attitudes are passed down as fact, not optional. In families where generational issues are complex, navigating family caregiver relationships and disagreements can be challenging due to isolation and the family's refusal to recognize that maybe it is time for a change around generational caregiving expectations, habits, and beliefs. So we'll look at caregiving situations from the perspective of the primary caregiver when no one else in the family offers to assist, and then we'll talk about ways to discuss generational habits and change generational caregiving expectations. By the way, if you are a sibling in a family where Generational caregiving is the expectation, or maybe you're an elderly parent listening who is set in your ways. The information in this show may help you be more empathetic toward the experience of the caregiver in your family. If you love this person, how can you be more supportive of their concerns instead of dismissing their concerns? Isolation, caregiver burnout, caregiver exhaustion, and unintentional elder abuse are aspects of family caregiving that not everybody talks about. For the caregiver and the person who needs help, life can become increasingly narrow, isolated, and lonely. If you are the primary caregiver, you know that there's no time for things that you used to do that you loved. There's probably not even time for you to take care of yourself. You still may be holding down a full-time job or trying to hold down a full-time job and care for an elderly parent. If you are the older adult in this situation, because of advancing age, health problems, or income limitations, you may have given up activities that brought you joy or no longer be able to do them. So, all you do is spend time with your caregiver in a not so great life situation. You rely on a single son or daughter to care for you, while your other children and family members are off living their lives. If we're being honest and you are the elderly parent, this level of isolation and limited care may not be the best for you, even though this is the expectation of your culture. Care situations can become unintentionally neglectful or even abusive when your caregiver becomes exhausted, burned out, frustrated, resentful, has difficulty focusing, or is not dealing with their own physical and emotional health problems. Your caregiver may not even realize that he or she is neglecting your health care or your social care needs. And this can be because of the way that you raised your child. Maybe there was never money for health care when your children were young. And so today, your adult child isn't aware of beneficial programs. They lack an understanding of the importance of preventative and ongoing health care. They don't know how to talk to doctors. They don't know how to navigate the healthcare system. What parents do not teach their young children, their children may never learn unless they are exposed to new information and education later in life because they seek it out about health, healthcare, financial planning, and legal planning, which are all components of a caregiving plan. It can be hard to see a different way of life in a family if there's no one to discuss the possibilities, and if one does not choose to create a different way of life, to take a different path. This is one impact of limiting generational beliefs. And if a caregiver is caring for an elderly parent or a loved one diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's, the care provided and the time committed grows eventually into a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job with no end in sight. People with memory loss, they can live another 5, 10, 20, 30 years. And during this time, because of the stress and time involved, the caregiver's health declines. Some caregivers die before the people they care for. These are the risks that must be discussed in all families so that alternate plans can be put in place in the event of something unexpected. Caring for elderly parents with dementia or Alzheimer's and raising young children at the same time can have many unintended lifelong effects on children. These leave memories forever, like we previously discussed. The question to ask in your family is, why continue to pass down expectations, beliefs, habits, and behaviors that no longer benefit everybody in the family, and they limit life opportunities? As a parent, why hold your children back from accomplishing the most they can accomplish during their lifetime? Because you expect them to give up their hopes and dreams to care for you. While I understand this is the way of many cultures have this expectation. The younger adults that I counsel in my one-to-one sessions want their lives to be different. They're not ready to give up everything to follow cultural expectations. So there may come a point when the older generations must recognize this and become more flexible in their expectations and beliefs if they want to maintain positive family relationships. Now, I know many families who take the easy way out to excuse generational habits by saying, oh, this is just the way it is, or this is just the way it was. They refuse to consider the potential of positive change. Some elderly parents make no effort to change their harmful behaviors because their parents were this way and they're just this way. They justify ways to excuse the harmful or destructive behaviors and continue to make excuses. If this is the way of your family, is it time to think differently? Is it time to plan differently for the benefit of future generations? Let's say that you are the youngest woman in your family or a son, and you want to go to college and have a career rather than getting married and taking care of your elderly parents for the rest of their lives. Well, why can't you do this? Family caregivers doing it all themselves often find themselves in a losing situation, especially if early child-parent relationships were not supportive. This is one reason that caregivers remain stuck. As this child and today as an adult caring for your parents, do you feel constantly criticized, made to feel guilty for your efforts, and generally unappreciated? While you care for an elderly parent and you admit it, you don't like your mom or dad, you still dream of having a lovely parent, but the fact is you don't, and this makes you sad. You also may not have close relationships with your siblings who moved out of the house as soon as they could to get away from mom or dad. So as a caregiver, you feel like you have no one, and this makes you feel regretful. But as the primary caregiver, your efforts have made life easier on everyone in the family, everyone but yourself. You may have an elderly grandparent or a parent with ingrained beliefs that the oldest or youngest child should be the caregiver while everyone else goes on with their lives. There may be other generational beliefs in your family that you disagree with. A caregiver I know relates generational family habits and beliefs and caregiving to a bucket of crabs. As one crab struggles to climb up and out of the bucket, all of the other crabs are pulling and grabbing this crab to pull it back down into the bucket so it can't free itself, so it can't get away. No one in the family wants anyone to rise above the others. The problem with being the only crab who tries to escape the family bucket of generational beliefs or habits is that you're continually exposed to behaviors that reinforce habits that hold you back from your hopes, wishes, and dreams. Your siblings don't want you to improve your life because they don't know how or want to make the effort to improve their lives. Your parents may be envious or hesitant because their parents, your grandparents, held them back. So your parents limit your opportunities. No one gets to rise above the others. So as this caregiver, it can be a struggle to change your life, knowing that everybody else doesn't want you to change. They want you to remain on comfortable and familiar ground with relationships that may be unsupportive, toxic, codependent, or, at this point, generationally irrelevant. One of the most common issues families face when dealing with generational caregiving expectations is the ability to manage interpersonal relationships and conflict and navigate change. In my online meetings with caregiver families, many families focused on the past instead of looking at the possibilities of future plans. Some siblings only worry about themselves, their inheritance, and competing with other siblings because of their experiences and the way that they were brought up by their parents. Some spouses are in denial about the health problems of their husband or wife. Others never planned, so they don't want to plan. Parents say, "Oh, my kids can deal with it," which can be a recipe for disaster if your kids don't want to deal with it because you refuse to discuss it. Recognize that these stories, these patterns, whatever they are, thoughts like, "I have to be the caregiver. My kids will deal with it. My mom can't help herself from being so critical. Dad does this or that." All of these stories become your family's identity and how you think about yourself. They can limit your potential and your opportunities. So if you're the caregiver, what can you do? It may not be easy if you're swept away by endless demands and expectations. So the first priority for you is to make the time to investigate other options for the care of your parents. Ask your friends to help. If you have children, put them to work investigating. Whether this investigation comes through your siblings or other people in your family, identify options for paid caregivers coming into your parents' home. Identify options for moving your parents to a care community. Identify options to access public benefits if your parents have no money to pay for care. Learn about navigating medical relationships and doctors and hospitals and care. Then take a step back and look at the generational challenges and habits that may make any of these things difficult to do. Is your brother the favored one who can do no wrong? Is he overly controlling? Is he inconsiderate of others' needs? Did your father emotionally or physically abuse your mother to the degree that today she won't speak up or say a thing? Were your parents so strict that once children became 18, they all moved out of the home? Did one of your parents deny your request to go to college? Are family gossip and triangulation behaviors accepted? As the daughter, are you expected to do what you're told and never to stand up for your rights, your desire to go to college, marry the person of your choice, or not get married at all? No family is perfect. All families have challenges. It's how we decide to deal with or ignore these challenges that affect us, our future, and future generations. Generational challenges that affect caregiving relationships can be about the caregiver's right to choose to not be the caregiver, or to be the caregiver and then choose differently after a defined time period. As the caregiver doing all the work, it takes mental work and planning to overcome these expectations and to work through family habits and relationships if your family members are willing. This is where you need your family's support and the ability to openly agree or disagree with the idea that all family caregiving duties must follow on you, and that harmful habits, beliefs, or codependent relationships in the families are acceptable and can't be changed. If you've been the caregiver, know that it's probably pretty likely that your parents are going to resist this change, as well as your siblings who are not going to want their lives changed. Family members may also not want to confront what I call the elephants in the closet. All of these issues that have been ignored or pushed aside or denied for years. So as the caregiver, what skills do you have to facilitate change? Do you have conflict resolution skills? Do you have the confidence to bring up uncomfortable topics and stay with them until there's resolution? Do you have the experience to hold and organize family meetings? Do you even know where to start? Specific to caregiving, navigating family relationships, healthcare, financial matters, and legal matters. There are plenty of resources and support on this podcast, 233 episodes, on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, hundreds of videos on my YouTube channel. On my website, there are articles, 3 online courses, my blog, my book, and ways to schedule a one-on-one consultation with me if you need more assistance. The way forward is to get your family involved and comfortable in having conversations around generational habits and a caregiver's right to choose how that caregiver lives their life. Part of the process is to schedule family meetings with specific agenda topics to talk about issues that are happening, why change is necessary, options to improve a care situation, and so on. Other topics can include parents completing their estate plan, their legal documents, hiring in-home caregivers, managing health and medical care, reviewing finances to see if there's money to pay for care, investigating care communities, learning about Medicare and Medicaid, and most of all, having family members work together on these projects instead of one person bearing all of the individual responsibility. If your family situation is difficult and you've tried, and there's just too many difficult personalities and a difference of opinion, and people don't want to participate, you can always hire someone like myself to facilitate these conversations. Even still, there may be challenges. There can be times when family members may avoid conversations or fail to attend meetings, but they usually come around. The timing for some of these discussions may not be right for one family member versus another. One family member may be too busy right now or have other priorities in their life, but that doesn't mean that they won't be interested in a month or two. For any family member who is too busy, I suggest sharing the information with them anyway, so that they can't show up later and all of a sudden change the direction of all of the work, of all of the progress the family has made. Remember, they weren't there for all the meetings. Some family members like to do this. You can learn to work with these difficult personalities in a positive manner. And this includes your elderly parents. Family disagreements about generational caregiving expectations can be resolved. I know this because I host family meetings on these topics. Now, if you're the only person in the family who is seeking to drive change in this area, it can be difficult because you are that little crab trying to crawl out of the bucket or to swim upstream. You want to work to help others in the family at least consider meeting. At least consider what you're asking rather than just dismissing your concerns. Some family members may be more inflexible than others for their own reasons or stories. They may say they want to be supportive, but fall back into bad habits. And know that the solutions or options that come out of these family meetings may not be perfect for a lot of reasons out of the caregiver's control. Everybody can do their best to avoid hard feelings or resentment, and to reframe differences of opinion as a matter of how one person wants to live their life versus how another person wants to live their life. We all don't want to live in the same manner. We all don't have the same goals. It's important to work to reach a middle ground and an agreement on how to manage caregiving expectations and a caregiving plan. If it's important to you to stop being the primary caregiver who does everything, make the time to do this. Put in the effort so that you don't find yourself 1 or 2 or more years down the road in the same place of exhaustion and burnout and frustration that you are today. Don't put yourself in a position of looking back and thinking, I should have done something. Why didn't I do anything? I waited. Because while the family caregiver's needs are often downplayed or dismissed by other family members, don't let this happen to you. Your life as a caregiver is equally as valuable as the life of an elderly parent, your siblings who are going on with their lives, other people in your family. Don't give up. Keep moving forward to create the life you want. Recognize and identify the generational habits and patterns in your family. Be open to talking about them in your family. Schedule meetings to talk about them and to talk about family caregiving and what this looks like not only today, but 3 to 5 to 10 to 20 years to future generations in the family. I'm Pamela D. Wilson, a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. You're with me on The Caring Generation. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 233. Please take a minute right now on your podcast app. Click like, follow the show, and leave a positive comment. Your positive comment will help other people find their way here. If you want to view the show transcript, the video that accompanies this podcast, and the research I mentioned, go to PamelaDWilson.com, click on the Media tab, select The Caring Generation, and scroll down to this episode. Check out the other 200 episodes while you're there. Again, I thank you all for being here. I look forward to being with you again soon. God bless you all. Sleep well tonight. Have a fabulous day tomorrow. And enjoy each day until we are here together again.
Tune in each week for The Caring Generation with host Pamela D. Wilson. Come join the conversation and see how Pamela can provide solutions and peace of mind for everyone. Here on Pamela D. Wilson's The Caring Generation.